The great galactic dockyard was alive with noise. The sound of hammers, engines, and voices echoing through the endless metal corridors. Ships from every corner of the galaxy rested in the giant bays, polished and shining, bristling with advanced weapons and smooth armor, but in the far corner, where shadows covered the floor, sat a very different ship. Its hull was old, covered with uneven plates of metal welded together like patchwork cloth. The paint had faded so much that no one could tell its original color. Its engines coughed weakly from time to time, sending out small puffs of black smoke on its side. Letters were barely visible. The ship's name, Rust Bucket Prime. Aliens from different worlds stopped to stare. They whispered to each other, some pointing and laughing openly. Others shook their heads, wondering why the humans even brought this thing into the dockyard. To them, this was not a warship. It was a piece of trash. A tall insectoid officer from the Crix species clicked his mandibles and said loudly, "Humans must be desperate. The ship would be destroyed in seconds if it faced real combat." His companions laughed so hard, their voices echoed across the bay. A group of reptilian workers nearby joined in, one of them shouting, "Careful, don't touch it. It might fall apart if you breathe on it." But the human crew did not respond. They moved quietly, carrying equipment and ceiling panels. Their captain, a tall man with calm eyes, walked slowly along the hull, inspecting every line of metal. He said nothing to the aliens, nothing to defend the ship's honor. Among the watchers was Lurak, a Zellery captain famous for his quick temper and loud laughter. Stood with his arms folded, grinning widely. "Rust Bucket Prime," he said. "That's what we'll call it. This will be the worst ship in the history of the galaxy." His crew laughed with him. The sound sharp and cruel. Still, the humans kept working. One alien engineer, smaller than the rest, noticed something strange under the loose plates. There were narrow lines of silver metal, hidden almost completely from view. The engineer's curiosity grew, but before he could approach, the human captain glanced in his direction, and the bay doors of the ship closed with a loud hiss, locking out anyone who wasn't part of the crew. That glance was brief, but it carried something cold, a warning. It made the engineer take a step back without even thinking. He told himself it was nothing, just human arrogance, but deep inside, a feeling of unease stayed with him. In the bars and markets of the dockyard, word about the ship spread quickly. The story of the worst ship reached every corner. Pilots, merchants, and soldiers all came to take a look. Some just wanted to see the ugly thing for themselves. Others came for the jokes. Maybe they planned to scare enemies away by showing them how bad their ship is, one alien joked. Or maybe it's a trap. When enemies see this, they'll think humans are no threat at all, another laughed, but somewhere behind the jokes, there was a question no one could answer. Why would the humans bring such a broken-looking ship to the most important dockyard in the galaxy? Why here, where the most powerful fleets showed their strength? Late at night, when the dockyard lights dimmed and most crews slept, the human ship remained awake. Faint glows came from cracks in its hull. Strange shapes moved along the decks. Sometimes there was a deep hum, low enough to make the floor tremble. A few curious aliens stayed to watch, hiding in the shadows. They saw small drones floating around the ship, welding, adjusting, removing parts, and replacing them with pieces they had never seen before. It was clear the humans were making changes, but the purpose was a mystery. When dawn came, the captain of Rust Bucket Prime stood at the open ramp. His voice was calm but carried across. "The dockyard? We will be ready in 3 days," he said. "Our mission is set." He did not say what the mission was. He did not invite questions. Then he turned and disappeared into the ship. Lorak and the others laughed again. 3 days. 3 minutes in battle, and there'll be space dust, he said. But even as he laughed, he noticed something different in the way the human crew moved. There was no panic, no fear, no embarrassment. They worked with quiet confidence, as if they knew something no one else did. In the corner of the bay, an old alien elder leaned on his staff, watching the humans closely. His wrinkled eyes narrowed, and he muttered under his breath, "Fools, all of you, you think this is their worst ship? But humans never show their sharpest blade until the moment it must strike. Those words were lost under the sound of more laughter, yet in the silent heart of Rust Bucket Prime, secret waited, something that could change not only the fate of the humans, but the fate of the galaxy itself. The news of Rust Bucket Prime spread far beyond the dockyard. In the floating cities of the Galactic Council, in the crowded trading stations, in the deep mining colonies, everyone had heard of the humans' worst ship. Some spoke with amusement, others with pity, but all agreed on one thing. It was impossible for that vessel to prove itself against the galaxy's finest. Then, an event shook the galaxy. A rift storm opened at the far edge of known space. It was not a normal storm of dust or radiation. This was a tear in reality itself, a place where space twisted like liquid and time stuttered like a broken engine. Ships that entered never returned. The storm was surrounded by wrecks, shattered hulls, burnt engines, frozen bodies drifting in the void. The Galactic Council issued a challenge. Whoever could enter the rift, travel through its deadly heart, and return with data would earn rights to new trade routes and full military honor. Dozens of fleets considered it, but most turned away after seeing the storm's destructive force. The few who dared to approach had their ships ripped apart in minutes. In the council chamber, the leaders debated. Alien representatives argued over which species could handle the mission. Some claimed their own fleets were strong enough. Others accused rivals of cowardice. All conversations stopped when a human representative stood and spoke. The Rust Bucket Prime will enter the rift. The human said. His tone was steady, without arrogance or hesitation. For a moment the chamber was silent. Then came the laughter. Loud, endless, mocking laughter. Representatives slapped their desks. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Even those who respected humans couldn't hide their disbelief. Luruk, the Zellery captain who had mocked the ship before, stood and shouted, "Perfect. Send them in. At least we'll get some entertainment before the storm eats them alive." His words were met with cheers from his allies, but not everyone laughed at the far end of the chamber. The alien elder who had watched the humans in the dockyard listened quietly. His eyes never left the human representative when the vote came. The challenge was accepted. The Rust Bucket Prime was officially tasked with entering the rift. Back in the dockyard, alien crews gathered in massive observation decks overlooking the launch zone. Merchants closed their stalls early. Soldiers left training drills. Mechanics abandoned their work. Everyone wanted to see the humans' humiliating end. Some carried betting slips, wagering on how long the ship would last. 2 minutes. 1 minute, even 30 seconds, the Rust Bucket Prime's crew moved without rushing. Loading supplies, checking systems, sealing the hull. They spoke little. Each movement seemed precise, practiced, as if they had done this countless times before. Inside the human command room, Captain Rain stood before a large holodisplay of the rift storm. His officers gathered around him. The swirling mass of light and shadow looked like a living thing, reaching out to pull its prey inside. "Once we cross the boundary," Rain said, "we'll have no communication with the outside world. We are on our own." His voice carried no fear, only certainty. "Remember your roles. Trust the ship. Trust the work we've done in silence." No one asked questions. No one looked doubtful. They knew what the galaxy did in Rust Bucket Prime was not what it seemed. When the launch order came, the docking clamps released with a hiss. The engines roared, sending out a low vibration that made the observation deck's glass tremble. The old patched ship slowly lifted away from the bay floor. For the onlookers, it was like watching a relic rise from the grave. As it moved toward the rift, alien voices filled the com channels. "Enjoy your last flight, humans," one mocked. "Tell the storm we said hello," another laughed. Lurok himself sent a personal transmission. "I hope you polished that wreck. You'll want to look your best when the storm tears you apart." The humans didn't reply. Soon, the ship floated before the rift. It was massive, a swirling vortex of fractured stars and shifting void. Light bent around it, creating impossible shapes. The sight made even the most experienced alien captains uneasy. From the observation deck, the crowd leaned forward, waiting for the moment the ship would be swallowed. Many were ready to cheer at the first sign of the hull breaking apart. But inside the human ship, something else was happening. Panels slid open across the sides of the vessel, revealing strange, smooth metal underneath. Faint silver lines began to glow, forming patterns no alien technology had ever shown. On the observation deck, the laughter faded into murmurs, then into silence. "What is that?" someone whispered. No one could answer. The human captain gave the order. And Rust Bucket Prime moved forward. The moment it touched the rift's edge, the glow around its hull pulsed like a heartbeat. The ship vanished from sensors for less than a second, then reappeared deeper inside the storm. Shock rippled through the alien crowd. No ship had ever made it that far before without being torn apart, and the humans. They were still moving forward, steady and controlled, on the Council's secure channel. The Elder spoke quietly, his voice almost lost under the noise. "They have teeth. Sharper than you think." The challenge had begun, but for the humans. This was no challenge at all. It was a demonstration. The rift was not just a storm. It was a wound in the skin of the universe. It's twisting light into spirals, bending entire starfields into shapes that made the eyes ache. Colors shifted in ways no mind could understand, and shadows stretched where there was no light. Ships that entered were not merely destroyed, they were unmade, scattered into pieces smaller than dust. Rust Bucket Prime moved toward that impossible sight with slow, deliberate grace, on the observation decks far behind. Thousands of alien eyes were fixed on the human vessel, expecting at any moment for its fragile hull to shatter. Many were already leaning forward, ready to cheer or laugh. Inside the human bridge, Captain Rain sat in the command chair, his hands resting calmly on the armrests. Around him, the crew worked without hesitation. Every officer moved like they had rehearsed this moment 100 times. There was no fear in their eyes, only focus. The moment the ship's nose crossed the rift's boundary, alarms screamed across alien sensors. Data streams became unreadable. Ships in the past had lasted seconds before their hulls twisted apart. But Rust Bucket Prime kept moving. The glow from the strange silver lines along its hull pulsed brighter, spreading in intricate patterns that looked almost alive from the viewing stations. Alien commanders whispered to each other, "It's impossible." "That ship should already be gone," said a scaled officer from the Drovan fleet. "Look at the way it moves," another murmured. "It's slipping through the distortions inside the rift. Space itself was wrong." Stars appeared and vanished like sparks. Planets the size of fists spun past in flashes. Rivers of light poured upward, as if gravity itself had been rewritten. The human crew's screens flickered with unreadable readings. But they did not panic. Instead, they adjusted the ship's position again and again. As if following a path only they could see, the navigation officer, Lieutenant Hale, spoke quietly. "Drive is stable, Captain. The field is holding Rain." Nodded. "Good. Take us deeper." Every few minutes the ship flickered, vanishing for less than a breath, reappearing hundreds of kilometers ahead, to the alien fleets watching from outside. It looked as though the Rust Bucket Prime was bending around invisible corners in space, moving through folds no one else could detect. Back on the observation deck, Lurik's grin was gone. He gripped the railing tightly, his mandibles clicking. In frustration, "They must be cheating," he muttered. "Some kind of cloaking trick," but even he knew this was no mere trick. No known technology could survive here, let alone advance deeper. As the ship pushed forward, the rift began to react. Vast tendrils of energy curled toward the vessel. Each one could tear a cruiser apart in seconds. The humans didn't run. Instead, the captain gave a quiet order: initiate phase shift. Panels on the ship's underside slid open, releasing faint waves of shimmering distortion. The tendrils passed harmlessly through the hull, as if the ship wasn't really there. The alien spectators gasped. No one in the galaxy had ever seen a vessel simply ignore the rift's attacks. Deeper and deeper the ship went, until the light around it turned into a swirling tunnel. The stars outside stretched into thin, trembling lines, and the deck beneath the crew began to hum with an energy so deep it could be felt in the bones. Lieutenant Hale kept her eyes on the instruments. "Captain, the readings ahead are unlike anything we've recorded. The core is unstable, collapsing in on itself." Rain's voice was calm. "Then we go through before it seals. hold the field at maximum from the outside. Alien viewers saw the ship vanish into a vortex of collapsing light. Sensors screamed warnings of catastrophic distortion. Some turned away, certain this was the moment the Rust Bucket Prime would finally die. But inside the rift, something extraordinary happened. The human ship's hull shimmered. Its glowing lines twisting and rearranging, the space around it seemed to ripple. The vessel was no longer flying through the rift, it was moving with it, slipping between the folds of broken reality like a fish through water. For a brief moment, an alien scout ship tried to follow, hoping to claim some of the glory. It lasted only seconds before its hull crumpled like paper, vanishing into the swirling void. The humans didn't slow down. On the bridge, the crew was silent, except for short, precise commands. Sweat lined their faces, but their eyes stayed steady, outside the windows. The rift's core loomed ahead, a pulsing sphere of blinding light surrounded by spirals of darkness. It looked less like a storm and more like the beating heart of some vast alien creature. Approaching core boundary, Hale announced, "Hold position at 100 meters." Rain ordered. The ship slowed until the core filled the entire forward view. For a few seconds, no one spoke. The hum of the ship and the slow pulse of the core were the only sounds. Then the captain stood. "Mark this point. We're going through." Every alien watching from afar thought the same thing. No ship could survive a direct entry into the core, but Rust Bucket Prime did not hesitate. Its engines flared, the glowing lines along its hull blazing like white fire, and in the next moment it dove straight into the impossible light. The sensors of every alien fleet went blank, the ship was gone, and somewhere deep in the silent darkness beyond the rift, Rust Bucket Prime had just entered a place no living being had ever seen before. Inside the rift's core, there was no up or down, no left or right, only an endless ocean of light and shadow twisting together. Stars seemed to float past the windows, then dissolve into streams of glowing dust. Shapes formed in the distance, only to melt into darkness. Time itself felt uncertain, as though minutes and hours were blending into one. Rust Bucket Prime moved forward with calm precision. The ship's strange silver lines pulsed in a steady rhythm, like the beat of a living heart. On the bridge, Captain Rain stood silently, his eyes fixed on the glowing path ahead. His crew followed their duties without hesitation. Their movements were too perfect, too practiced. This was not their first time dancing with impossible forces. In the galaxy beyond, aliens waited, frustrated that their sensors could no longer track the human vessel. On the secure channels of the Galactic Council, debates grew heated. Some demanded the humans be declared lost. Others argued to wait. The alien elder who had spoken before only muttered one sentence: "The storm is not where they are tested, it is where they test us." Back inside the ship, the true secret was now visible to the crew. The walls of the command deck were lined with unfamiliar machinery. Its design was unlike anything humans had ever built. Smooth, flowing shapes that seemed grown rather than manufactured. The metal itself had a faint warmth, as if it were alive. Lieutenant Hale glanced at the captain. "Core drive holding steady, Captain. The field integrity is perfect." Rain nodded. "Maintain current speed. Keep the phase shift locked." It was no ordinary engine that kept Rust Bucket Prime alive inside the rift. Deep in the lower decks, behind a series of sealed bulkheads, the heart of the ship pulsed with a light that did not belong to human science. It was a relic. An ancient drive core discovered decades ago in the ice-covered wastes of a dead world. The story was known only to a handful of people, and every one of them was aboard this ship. The discovery had been pure chance. A human exploration team, chasing faint energy readings in a frozen wasteland, stumbled upon the wreck of a vessel unlike any ever recorded. The hull was cracked, its crew long gone, but in its center sat a machine that was still alive, still waiting. Scientists studied it in secret for years. Theories whispered it came from a civilization older than the galaxy's current empires. Some even claimed it was built before the first stars were born. Every test proved one thing: the drive could bend space itself. It could create pathways through reality. slipping between layers of the universe that other ships could not even detect. But the technology was unstable, dangerous, and no one dared use it. No one, except the humans. They had built Rustbucket Prime not as a warship, but as a mask, a disguise to hide the most dangerous engine in existence. While the galaxy laughed at their patched hull and coughing engines, they were secretly preparing for a mission no other species could survive on the bridge. Rain spoke quietly into the comms. Engineering, status on containment. A voice came back, calm and certain. Containment is green, phase harmonics are locked. The drive is singing. The crew felt the words more than they understood them. When the drive sang, it meant the ship was perfectly aligned with the folds of space. Each pulse of light along the hull was a note in that silent song, keeping them safe from the crushing chaos outside. Through the forward view, the rift's core expanded. At its center was something no one had expected, a vast, dark shape, half hidden by swirling light. It looked like a structure, but too large for a single ship, more like a station or even a city. Hale frowned. Captain, there's something ahead. It's not part of the storm. Rain's expression didn't change. Bring us in closer. Record everything. As they approached, details emerged. The surface of the structure was covered in symbols that glowed faintly. The same symbols could be found etched deep into the hidden panels of Rustbucket Prime's hull. The crew exchanged silent glances. They had seen these markings before. On the ancient wreck where the drive had been found, this was no random anomaly. The rift was hiding something, a remnant of the civilization that had built the drive. Back in the galaxy outside, alien fleets were growing restless. Hours had passed with no sign of the humans. Some were ready to declare the mission a failure, but the Elder remained silent, his gaze fixed on the swirling storm, as though he could see beyond it. Inside the rift, the ship drifted to a halt. Rain turned to his crew. What you see here is not for the Council, not for the galaxy. This is ours. We take what we can. Then we leave. The crew began scanning, storing every piece of data. Every reading was priceless. The materials, the energy signatures, the patterns in the light. This was knowledge that could shift the balance of power in the galaxy, and no one outside this ship would ever know the full truth. The ancient structure pulsed once, faintly, as if sensing their presence. The drive core deep in the ship answered with a matching pulse. The crew felt the deck vibrate, not in fear, but in recognition. Hale's voice was barely a whisper. Captain, it knows us. Rain looked at the glowing core through the floor's viewing grate. His voice was calm, almost reverent. It should. We're flying its blood. The rift's core pulsed like a beating heart, each flash of light sending ripples through the swirling walls of energy. The massive dark structure ahead seemed to wait for the humans, silent and unmoving, as if deciding whether they were worthy to approach. On the bridge of Rustbucket Prime, Captain Rain stood tall, his eyes fixed on the strange alien city hidden. Inside the storm, his crew worked in silence, every movement precise. Every scan they ran returned results that defied normal science. Metals that shouldn't exist, energy readings beyond any known scale, and a constant hum that matched the frequency of their own ancient drive core. In engineering, deep below the bridge, the heart of the ship glowed brighter. The silver veins, running along its surface, pulsed faster, as if the machine was excited. The engineers exchanged uneasy glances. They had seen the drive perform miracles before, but never like this. Never with this kind of hunger. Captain, Hale reported from the navigation console. The rift is starting to collapse. We don't have much time. Rain nodded slowly. Then we push it. The words fell into the air like a spark in dry grass. The crew froze for just a second, then nodded. They knew what push it meant. They were going to take the drive past its tested limits, to see what it could truly do. In the observation decks outside the rift, alien fleets still stared at the storm, waiting for the humans to fail. Some had already turned away, bored of the silence. Others kept their scanners on, ready to record the exact moment the human ship broke apart. No one there could have guessed what was about to happen. Back inside the rift, Rain gave the order. All systems maximum output, lock phase shift to full sync. Prepare for slip, The engineers obeyed. Fingers moving across glowing panels, the drive's hum grew into a deep, vibrating roar that could be felt through the deck plate's lights. Along the hull brightened until they were almost blinding. The ship began to shake, not from strain, but from the sheer force of what it was holding inside. Outside the viewports, the rift reacted. Energy tendrils lashed toward the ship, faster and thicker than before. Each one struck the hull and passed through harmlessly. The phase shift held, letting the ship exist half in this reality, half in another, but that wasn't enough. Rain wanted more. Drive room. He called into the comms. Release that limiter. The chief engineer's voice crackled back, tense but steady, Captain. If we do that, there's no going back. That's the point. Rain replied with a single command. The final safeguard was unlocked. The drive's core flared like a star being born. The silver lines along the hull twisted into new patterns, spinning and shifting in ways that made the eye ache to follow. It was no longer just light, it was movement, shapes folding over themselves, layers of space peeling apart and sliding back together. The ship surged forward, faster than any engine could explain. It wasn't acceleration, it was replacement. One moment they were hundreds of kilometers from the alien structure, the next they were right above it, as if the space between had simply ceased to exist. The crew's instruments screamed with impossible readings. Distance and direction, no longer meant anything. They were in a place where the rules of the universe bent like soft metal. The drive was guiding them through it. Below them, the alien structure pulsed in response. Symbols along its surface glowed brighter, matching the patterns on Rust Bucket. Prime's hull. The connection between them was undeniable. This ship and this place were built from the same mind. The same science, the same ancient hand, Captain Hal said, her voice barely steady. We're locked into a resonance. If we hold this too long, we might merge with it. Rain's eyes narrowed. Then we take what we came for before it takes us. The crew worked fast, downloading streams of data. Holographic maps, alien schematics, and energy blueprints that could power 1,000 fleets. Every second, the drive pulled them deeper into alignment with the alien city, and every second, the ship grew hotter, the deck vibrating under their feet. The engineers shouted over the roar, "We're at 120% output. Any more, and the containment will hold it." Rain barked. The moment stretched, the drive howled. The alien city's symbols blazed white, and the rift's swirling walls convulsed. The entire place felt alive now, aware of the humans, testing them, maybe even challenging them. Then Rain gave the final order, break the tether, full burn out of the core. The ship lurched. The drive shifted its patterns again, twisting space so violently that the view outside blurred into streaks of impossible color. For one heartbeat, everything went silent. No sound, no light, just emptiness. Then they were gone. From the outside, alien fleets watching the rift saw it explode with light. A flash so bright it blinded their sensors when their vision cleared. The rift was still there, but Rust Bucket Prime had emerged from its edge. Fully intact, glowing like a blade fresh from the forge, gasps filled the observation decks. Captains shouted to their crews for confirmation, but the readings were clear. The humans had gone deeper than anyone before, had stayed longer than anyone thought possible, and had come back alive. But it wasn't just survival. The ship was different now. Its hull lines still glowed faintly, and the way it moved was wrong, or maybe to right, as if it no longer fully belonged to normal space. On the bridge, Rain sat back down in his chair. His voice calm, set course for home, and keep our new secrets locked tight, because now the humans had more than a ship. They had a weapon, a key, and a truth that could shake the galaxy. The moment Rust Bucket Prime crossed the rift's edge, silence fell over the Galactic dockyard. Thousands of alien eyes were locked on the old patched ship, a vessel they had mocked, doubted, and written off as a flying joke. Now it emerged. Glowing faintly, its movements smooth and unnatural, as though it slid through space instead of pushing against it. The massive observation decks were packed. Every race and rank was present. Merchants, soldiers, engineers, and high ranking. Officers, many had gathered, expecting to witness the ship's destruction. But now, they stood frozen, unsure of what they were seeing. On the bridge of the ship, Captain Rain kept his posture calm. His crew sat at their stations. Faces unreadable, the deep hum of the ancient drive was quieter now, but still there, like a heartbeat under the floor, was a reminder to the crew they had touched something no other living being had. And they had returned carrying more than anyone could imagine. Docking control sent the standard hail, their voices hesitant. Rust Bucket Prime. Confirm mission status. Hale's voice was steady as she replied, "Mission complete. All primary objectives achieved." That was all they said. But those words hit the dockyard like a thunderclap. The council observers exchanged quick, tense looks. No ship in history had returned from the rift with proof of survival, let alone claiming full success, when the docking clamps secured the vessel. Alien reporters and envoys swarmed the bay, lights flashed, cameras focused, voices shouted, questions in a dozen languages. What did you find in there? How did your ship survive? What was that glow on your hull? Rain stepped onto the loading ramp with measured steps. His gaze swept over the crowd. Then he raised one hand. The noise died instantly. Everyone leaned in. Hungry for answers, the mission was dangerous. Rain began, his voice calm, but firm. "We entered the rift, navigated to the core and returned. That is all you need to know." The crowd erupted again, frustrated by the lack of detail. But there was something in his tone, an unspoken warning not to push further. The alien elder who had watched them from the start stood in the shadows. At the back, a faint smile on his face, he knew exactly why Rain was holding back. The council convened within hours, their chamber filled with tension. Some members demanded the humans share all data immediately. Others argued the humans had earned the right to keep their discoveries. Lurak, the Zellery captain who had mocked them the loudest, now sat in silence, his eyes fixed on the floor. He hadn't spoken since the ship appeared. Meanwhile, the story spread like fire across the galaxy in trade hubs, on mining colonies, and military outposts. The words were whispered, the humans came back. Some added more, claiming the ship had changed, that it no longer moved like other ships. Some swore they saw space bend around it as it docked. Merchants began refusing to mock human ships, afraid of offending a power they didn't understand. Pirate captains quietly erased humans from their target lists, even without orders, and in the back rooms of military fleets. Admirals started redrawing battle plans, wondering how to prepare for a vessel that could bend space itself on the human homeworld. Celebrations erupted. But in the highest levels of command, the mood was different. The data Rust Bucket Prime had brought back was too valuable and too dangerous to release. Scientists pored over the schematics, energy readings, and alien symbols. Each discovery raised more questions. The ancient drive was not just a tool. It was a key to something bigger, something hidden in the rift back on the ship. The crew went through routine maintenance as if nothing unusual had happened. They didn't speak about what they had seen in the core, not even to each other. It was as if the silence was part of the mission. A shield against curious ears. Hale stood at the observation window, watching the dockyard workers move around. Their vessel, she could see the way they avoided touching certain parts of the hull. As if they feared it in a way they should, the glow had faded. But the ship still carried a presence. Rain joined her quietly. "You see it too?" he said. She nodded. "They're afraid, but they don't even know why they will." Rain replied, one day, that night, while most of the dockyard slept. Rust Bucket Prime's engines pulsed once, faintly, without any order from the crew. The silver lines along its hull flickered for just a moment. As though answering a call from far away, Hale saw it from her quarters but said nothing, somewhere deep down.
Ow.
She knew the rift wasn't finished with them, and that their ship wasn't finished changing. The next morning, the humans departed the dockyard, refusing all escort offers. The ship moved smoothly through space, and even at a distance, alien crews felt the unease settle in their bones. The galaxy had always thought humans were bold, reckless, unpredictable. Now they knew humans were something far worse for there. Enemies prepared, patient, and carrying secrets no one else could touch. From that day forward, Rust Bucket Prime was not a joke. It was a shadow on every commander's mind. A name whispered in war rooms, a legend that would only grow in somewhere far beyond the charts. Deep in the untraveled dark, the rift pulsed once more, waiting weeks past since Rust Bucket Prime had returned from the rift. But the galaxy still spoke of it, in the market streets of trade hubs, in the shadowed halls of military bases, in the mess rooms of distant mining ships. The same whispers repeated again and again. The humans came back at first. The story was simple. The humans had entered the rift and survived. That alone was enough to shake centuries of belief that the storm was a death sentence. But as the days went by, the tale began to change. Some swore they saw the ship glow like a living thing. Some claimed it had disappeared from sensors and reappeared miles away in a blink. Others whispered that the humans had returned with something the galaxy wasn't ready to see. The Galactic Council demanded answers, but the humans remained silent when asked for full mission data. Captain Rain's only reply was, "The mission was successful. That is all you require." His calm, unshakable tone infuriated some, worried others, and impressed a few. Behind closed doors, alien admirals reworked their fleet's defense strategies. They had always thought of humans as clever and stubborn, but ultimately limited. Now they had to consider the possibility that humanity possessed a weapon no other species could match in pirate space. The effect was immediate. Human trade routes. Once favorite hunting grounds were now avoided entirely. Captains spoke of a cursed ship that could appear without warning, cross impossible distances, and vanish before a shot could be fired in the military academies of powerful empires. The name Rust Bucket Prime became a case study. Some instructors used it as a warning: never underestimate an enemy because of how they look. Others used it as inspiration: hide your sharpest blade until the moment it must strike. But the most important lesson spread quietly, carried by those who had truly watched the humans work. It was not just about the ship, or the ancient drive, or the technology no one else could understand. It was about patience. For centuries, humans had been underestimated. They were newcomers to the galactic stage, without vast fleets or ancient empires. Many species saw them as bold, but reckless. Harmless in the larger scale of power, but while the galaxy laughed at their rusted ships and patched holes humans had been building, testing, and preparing. They had taken a relic no one else dared to use and turned it into a weapon of precision on the human homeworld. Rain stood in a private meeting with the highest military leaders. Around them, holograms of the alien city within the rift floated. In the air, the data they had gathered was far more than maps and readings. It was a key to understanding the builders. Civilization lost before the first current empires were born. "This is not the end," Rain said quietly. "The rift is one door. There will be others." One of the generals frowned. "And when the galaxy realizes what we found?" Rain gave a faint smile. "They already know enough to fear us. That's all we need for now." Back in space, Rust Bucket Prime underwent quiet modifications. Panels were removed, replaced with materials from the alien city. The silver lines along the hull became brighter, more defined to anyone who saw it from a distance. It still looked like a patched old vessel, but those who had seen it in the rift would recognize the lie instantly. The alien elder who had watched them from the start sat in his quarters on a distant station, listening to the rumors with a knowing smile. When a young officer asked him if the humans were dangerous, he only replied, "The humans are patient. Hunters, they don't waste their strike on prey that isn't worth it." The galaxy slowly began to treat humans differently. Negotiations became more careful, insults more rare, and even in war, opposing fleets kept a respectful distance when human ships were involved. No one wanted to be the next to test Rust Bucket Prime, and yet the humans did not flaunt their power. They did not boast. They simply continued their work, exploring, trading, and building, as if nothing had changed. That, more than anything, unnerved the galaxy because it meant the humans were not finished. The final lesson was one no one said aloud, but all understood. Never mistake silence for weakness, because now they knew the worst ship in the fleet had shattered the fabric of space, and humanity had only just begun.